Is the 9 to 5 really dying, or are we just burned out and want something better? I ask myself this a lot, and I see a lot of it online. I will admit, and I think a lot of people will agree with me. Work has definitely changed the last few years. Coming out of 2020, 2021, being the main years of COVID, a lot of remote jobs. Just like a mass hiring spree. Every company was just trying to fill as many job positions as I think they honestly could afford. And jumping to 2024, 2025, we're seeing a lot of mass layoffs at those companies that overhired, whether it would be just a surplus of employees that they just hired too many people, or the implementation or adoption of AI or just large language models. That could also be a huge factor in it. So like along with the mass layoffs, just a lot of people are also just kind of quietly quitting, or just kind of not working as hard at their 9 to 5, not really looking to climb the ladder, just working there to get a paycheck and working on a side business, or trying to become an entrepreneur, trying to just kind of escape that 9 to 5 trap. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about in this video. Where is work going? Where does that leave the 9 to 5? Where do I fit into it, and where do you fit into it? So stick around. I'm pretty neutral when it comes to a 9 to 5. Throughout school, like when I graduated high school and then throughout college, I pretty much didn't have a 9 to 5. I worked at a sub restaurant. I used to work at a grocery store, worked at a shoe store, but my last year of college, I actually had an internship that was 9 to 5 based, and pretty much after college, I pretty much only had 9 to 5 jobs. So I've only been in the, I guess, 9 to 5 workspace, work world, for, I guess, going on 4 or 5 years now. So hasn't been a lot, but I have experienced it a little bit. And I feel the 9 to 5 is just, maybe it's meant for just a different era. I think a lot of people, with social media and just kind of being able to connect with people all over the world, we see it's just different everywhere. The 9 to 5 was really meant for getting a pension from your company, job security, and it really aligned with just cost of living with wages, because it wasn't really out of control with just high inflation rates and just housing prices going up. Pretty much everywhere you look, prices have just increased. But I mean, today, you have high inflation, really stagnant wages. They really don't increase, kind of to match the times, to match the cost of living right now. College debt, I mean, you can look at that however you want. And then just overall burnout. People are just kind of tired of the whole 9 to 5 grind. And with that, that 9 to 5 work, it doesn't always mean stability anymore. Back then, I think, you would get in a job, you'd stay there for 20, 30 years until it was time to retire with the company's pension plan. But nowadays, whether you work at a 9 to 5, whether you're at a factory, whether you're at a grocery store, if business isn't doing well, you're going to get let go regardless of the hours you work or the type of job you have. So, I mean, that kind of throws the stability part out of the window. And I think people ultimately started realizing, I think at the end of the day, because of social media or just the huge ability for us to just connect people all over, you realize, hey, working a job for 20, 30, 40 years is not what we were put on earth to do. We weren't put on earth to work. We're put on here to have fun, to experience new things, to live with our family, to be healthy, et cetera, et cetera. So people start asking themselves, is this all worth it? Is this allowing me to live the life I want to? And I think it all really ties together, because, it's just kind of like, if you're good with a 9 to 5, it gives you your weekends off, it gives you your nights off. That's perfect. But I mean, if you're looking to go to the beach on a random Wednesday, if you're not allowed to take time off, it kind of hinders those plans a little bit. So I think ultimately it really just ties down to what you're looking for in life and how you want to live that life. So me personally, I don't really mind the 9 to 5 as much, especially because I'm pretty early in my career. But I ultimately do want some flexibility when it comes to the 9 to 5. Um, I don't mind, going into office a couple times a week, and kind of having that hybrid approach. You get to interact with your coworkers, you get to see everybody, you get to kind of face to face, hands on, seeing people, interacting with people, still getting that social interaction, that social part of it. But I mean, there's some days where you just kind of want to just wake up, roll over into a chair, pop open your laptop, and just work for the day, and just kind of get that kind of just that self reflection, or just kind of want to get that solo peace and quiet work day. I'm completely all for it. I've had a job fully remote, I've had a job hybrid, and I'm currently fully in office. And fully remote does get a little lonely sometimes, especially like if you're not living with a family, or like if you're not living with roommates. If you're just working by yourself all day every day, it does get a little lonely. I will definitely admit that. So I think definitely the approach for me is definitely a hybrid type schedule. So when it comes to the 9 to 5, you don't have to fully, quote unquote, quit the 9 to 5 to reject that toxic work culture or work volume. If you're thinking 40 hours is too much or whatever, learn to balance, whatever it takes, or whatever you have in your life that works for you, that lets you live the life you want. If you're working a 9 to 5 and you want to make some extra money, you would maybe invest into some sort of side hustle, or investing or physical health. You ultimately can still work a 9 to 5 job and still build freedom slowly. Social media will kind of tell you the opposite. They'll tell you, hey, quit your 9 to 5 and become an entrepreneur, and you'll work 5 hours a week. Maybe some people, that's definitely not everybody. I don't think everybody will or needs to own their own business, become an entrepreneur, work for themselves. I think some people like the structure of a 9 to 5 or a consistent schedule, and that's perfectly fine. As long as you're investing on the side, you can slowly build your freedom when it comes to that time of retirement, or when it comes to that time you think, hey, I want to live my own life. I want to live on my own terms. I don't want to work anymore. And as always, success doesn't have one definition anymore. It ultimately, I think, the whole question of this video, is the 9 to 5 dead, really ties back to what are you looking for out of life. And I feel success is different in everybody's eyes. It's what they want out of life. So I'm kind of curious, feel free to drop it in the comment section below. What kind of life do you want? Feel free to mention an income range. You don't have to give me an exact amount, or you don't have to mention it at all. But just, maybe reverse engineer your income and see how it gets you to the life you want or your life goals. I'm just kind of curious where everybody's at, and what their ultimate goal in life is. Do they want to be a multimillionaire? Do they want to set their future generations up with money so they don't have to work, or they don't have to work as hard? Are they just living day to day? If they're guaranteed a dinner for the night, perfect. If they're not, they're just kind of going with the flow. I want you guys to, if you're looking to level up, whether it be your career or your income level, or your skills, start learning skills, guys. I will say YouTube is like college. It's probably better than college at some point, and it doesn't cost money. Just, if you're looking to level up, look at skills that are making 6 figures, or that are going to last us into the future, whether it be healthcare, tech, financing, investments, maybe potentially content, creating your own YouTube videos, creating shorts, TikToks, if you're really into that social media platform. Me personally, not, but to each of their own. Always try to save and invest so you can buy your time back later. What I mean by that is, don't get your paycheck and go to the bar every weekend and just blow it on alcohol and, having a good time. Be frugal. I mean, enjoy your time here and there, but don't blow all your money, whatever's left over from bills or responsibilities. Invest it, slow and steady. If you stick to investing on a month-to-month basis, dollar cost averaging, when it comes to retirement age, you'll retire with a couple $1,000,000. That may be plenty enough for everybody, or some people, I should say. Maybe not for others, but if you're looking to just go slow and steady wins the race, you want to end up with a couple $1,000,000 when it comes to retirement. Slowly invest and save your money as the years go on. And I want to leave you guys with this. It's really less about killing the 9 to 5 or is the 9 to 5 dead, but really sitting down and figuring out what you want out of life, and just ultimately more about building your escape plan on the side. So if you want to keep the 9 to 5, you like your evenings off, you like your weekends off, perfect. The 9 to 5 is a perfect opportunity for you. Although, you're also still depending on, keeping that job or that job not laying you off. So maybe, take the skills you're learning at your current workplace and just kind of continue to level yourself up. Hey, maybe one day if you get laid off, you'll be able to freelance the work you're doing at your current company, or you'll be able to better pivot to another company because your skills have upgraded as the years have gone on. Or, hey, if the 9 to 5 is just not you, you don't want to get up and work 9 to 5, or you don't want to go into an office, look at freelance work, look at gig type work, whether it be like starting your own lawn care business, or if you're more into freelance, if you've learned a tech skill, if you learn programming or software development, any IT related skill. A lot of companies have IT teams or have IT needs. Really the world is your oyster, guys. Just figure out ultimately what you want out of life, what you want your day-to-day schedule to look like, and then determine, is the 9 to 5 dead for me? Can I survive with a 9 to 5 and, do side work on the weekends? Do I just want to leave my 9 to 5 completely and, focus on freelance work or contract work? Whatever the case is, guys, I think that answer, is the 9 to 5 dead, will be answered based on everybody. I think everybody's answer to that will be unique. So let me know in the comments, guys. I'm really curious, what are you guys doing? What's your career field? How much are you making? What are your goals? Do you feel the 9 to 5's dead? Are you trying to get out of the 9 to 5? Do you like the 9 to 5 schedule? Just, drop your ideas in the comments, guys. I'm always interested in getting everybody's opinion. As always, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. If you're building your own path to freedom or you enjoy the content, feel free to check out my other videos on this channel. Kind of ranges from all topics, guys. Money talks, life topics, and just overall freedom, mostly financial freedom and time freedom. So, as always, guys, have a good night, have a good weekend. The Lunch Table out.